As Joshua, a modest park ranger, stumbles upon a leopard and her three vulnerable cubs facing imminent danger, he finds himself at a loss for what actions to take. However, he firmly understands that he must extend a helping hand in any possible manner. Failing to do so would undoubtedly result in dire consequences. In the depths of southern Africa, leopards remain an elusive sight. Tourists flock from all corners of the globe to catch a glimpse of these majestic creatures, but only a fortunate few manage to witness their beauty. As one of the esteemed Big Five species in southern Africa, leopards receive strict protection. Joshua's lifelong dedication to his work as a park ranger in a national reserve had instilled in him a deep sense of pride. His unwavering passion for nature and wildlife continued to flourish. Little did he know that his devotion would be tested on a fateful day, unlike any he had experienced before. The day unfolded like any other, with a sweltering summer heat hanging in the calm, clear skies. Joshua remained content, hoping for a chance encounter with his favorite park resident. He was a contented soul, aware that leopards primarily hunted during late afternoons and evenings. Spotting them during daylight hours often yielded little action, as they sought refuge in hidden caves or rested atop trees. The allure of these beautiful creatures drew people from all corners of the world, only to be frequently disappointed. However, one of the perks of working at the park was the increased probability of seeing these majestic animals. So, when Joshua was set out for the day, he was overwhelmed with excitement. Something told him that today would be his lucky day. Little did he know how right he was moving around. In a Land Rover was the standard procedure for patrolling the designated areas assigned to rangers. However, at some points where the terrain really became rocky, they needed to patrol on foot. This was Joshua's favorite thing to do anyways. He was an avid hiker in his free time. It also allowed him to see views that were out of reach. On this particular day, it was just fate that he had to patrol on foot. Otherwise, he never would have been where he needed to be in order to save lives. Joshua had been out for only 2 hours when he reached the point of needing to go on foot. Luckily for him, he did not have much gear on him due to it being a protected area. He didn't carry a weapon, but rather just a taser gun in case he needed to protect himself. So, he was traveling light. It took him just 30 minutes to summit the little rocky hill where he stopped and took a breather. He was just remarking to himself how beautiful the view was when all of a sudden he heard something suspicious that made the hairs on the back of his neck rise. He heard some gruff voices shouting to one another just beyond the bush line of the trees. Joshua's experience told him that these weren't just tourists wandering around the forest, but rather a more menacing threat. Poachers. Joshua had had a run-in with poachers when he was an intern, but that was years ago, and at the time he was not the one that dealt with it. But his mentor, though, he remembered one important thing to remain calm and Colin back up before he did. So he needed to confirm that they were, in fact, poachers, creeping quietly up to the bus line. He peeped through the bare trees. It was then that he saw it. 4 men were walking together with rifles hung over their shoulders. 2 were carrying something else. One had a big, fluffy animal draped over his shoulder while the other had a sack. Unlike the larger animal, the sack was moving. It took Joshua all of 2 minutes to realize that it was a leopard hanging over the one poacher's shoulder, which meant that the sack probably contained its babies quickly. Joshua radioed for help as quietly as he could. Only through all the adrenaline he toppled over and fell through the bushes. The poachers came to investigate what the sound was and found an angry Joshua. Without even thinking, he reacted. He tasered the one man who was holding the adult leopard and kicked the other with the sack in the stomach. This caused him to drop the sack. The other 2 poachers were priming to join the fight when all of a sudden, the base camp radioed through on his radio. This was enough to scare the poachers right off. They were scared of being caught for such a highly punishable crime. They smacked Joshua over the head and ran off. When Joshua came around, he was shocked by what he found. Sitting in front of him was the mother leopard, feeling slightly disorientated. The tranquilizer was wearing off and she was now conscious, but couldn't get her cubs out of the bag. Looking at Joshua in desperation, she growled softly while nudging the bag towards him with her nose. The ranger understood the leopard's cry for help and cautiously leaned forward to help the big cat get the bag open. Three little faces appeared, clearly shaken with fear. Joshua's heart instantly melted. He knew he had to help them. Both Mom and her cubs needed medical attention, and it was as if the mother leopard knew. That's why she hung around the ranger. Joshua, in conjunction with management, had decided that the best thing for the little family was to get some help until they could venture off on their own into the wilderness they were born into. So Joshua became their foster dad within just a week. He and the three cubs were inseparable. They would come with him in the van to patrol the park fence, eat with him, sleep with him, and even accompany him when he read his book. Always going back to Mom at the end of the day, Joshua could hardly believe the blessing that had been bestowed upon him. But he knew it was all too good and that soon it would have to come to an end. Very soon, the mother leopard started to become a little restless, and Joshua knew that the time had come for them to go back into the wild where they belonged. They needed to be on their own, in their natural habitat, in order to have a successful life. Unfortunately, this meant Joshua lost his newly made friends. The cubs didn't understand at first and simply just came back to Joshua's camp every few days. But after some time, it seemed they got the message. Joshua thought it was over, and that he would never see them again. How wrong he turned out to be. Day while on patrol, Joshua couldn't help but feel he was being followed. Sure enough, when he had a good luck, he found the three, not so little cubs trailing him. He was overjoyed. This continued for weeks. The cubs would come and go as they pleased. Sometimes they would join him, whilst other times just pop in to say hello and then move on. Little did Joshua realize how amazing this would turn out to be. It was a hot day, just like the day when he had saved the comps. He was on foot patrolling a rocky hill when he came across a man sitting on a rock. Joshua was pleasantly surprised, thinking it was a tourist. He walked over to greet him only. He was so wrong. Sitting on the rock was a man that looked all too familiar. As he turned around, Joshua realized he had made a mistake. In front of him sat one of the poachers who had fled, and before he could react, he heard a massive whack and saw black when he opened his eyes again. His head throbbed with an intensity he had never known. As he gradually surveyed his surroundings, a bewildering scene unfolded before him. His colleagues were restraining a man, while three leopards stood proudly by his side. He couldn't fathom what he was witnessing. Rising to a sitting position, a co-worker approached him and explained the events that had transpired. Joshua had been attacked and rendered unconscious by the poacher. However, the poacher had not anticipated the vigilant guardians lurking nearby. They swiftly leaped onto the poacher, subduing him. When Joshua's colleagues tried to contact him through the radio and received no response, they began searching for him. That's when they stumbled upon the poacher, terrified beneath the resounding roars of the leopards, with Joshua unconscious beside them. Just as he had come to the cubs' rescue, they had now saved him from a similar fate. Overwhelmed with disbelief, tears streamed down Joshua's face as he embraced the leopards, expressing his gratitude for their life-saving intervention. His heroic deeds had been reciprocated by the very leopards, safeguarding his own existence. We value your opinion on this story. If you enjoyed it and would like to share it with others, please let us know in the comments section below. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Thank you.